How's everybody doing? I was thinking this morning, coming in the building, about, that first year when I got here, such an unusual signing class. The way that it kind of unfolded back then. I took the job on Friday, but on Wednesday there was a signing date that put, I believe, about 10 players, you guys probably know better than me, about 10 or 11 players here to the University of Illinois that when they signed, they had no idea who I was or that I was going to become the head coach at the University of Illinois. And, some of those guys that were in that class that had the good fortune of coaching their entire career here, I never had a chance to meet them until they were already on our staff or in our building. First one last year was Patrick Bryant, right? Like a guy that was signed before I got here. I got to talk to him on the phone. I remember when I took the job, but really didn't know who he was or what he was. And then that first year, decided to play him, and obviously a very decorated player, and I think about it all the time, like as good as it was, right? Didn't really know that first year who he was, what he was, if we were able to redshirt him, thought we'd get to 5 for 5, but obviously worked out pretty good for him. And then watching him play the other night to see a screen, there was a play where Pat was in the screen, Palcho was in the screen, Johnny Newton was in the screen, and Quan was in the screen, and I was just like, wow, those four guys all played here with me at the University of Illinois, however their paths came together to create that moment. And then this year's class, to have the remnants of those guys that redshirted in that class be a part of the class going out, and now to sign a new one coming in. So very excited today. It's a very unique class in the fact that for the first time here at the University of Illinois, we've kind of come full circle about how we recruit. The way the rules are engaged now, we can actually have guys on the road that aren't full. Like when I first started coaching, first head coaching job in 2006, you could only have the 10 assistants on the road and the head coach, and I believe we were at 9 assistants at that time, if I'm not mistaken, and then eventually evolved to a 10th assistant and a head coach, and then it kind of evolved to that you could sub in some non-coaches with medical release or special exceptions, and now to be where we are in the recruiting world. This class has been assembled by this whole building, the Smith building staff, especially when guys on campus, they can never have contact with some of our support staff until they actually literally get here for their official visits, but they may have met them on a Zoom, they may have talked to them on the phone, so just a really unique transitional class, and the fact that this has probably been more people on the road seeing them at their schools or evaluating them, as well as the coaches, than any other class in the history that I've been as a head coach or here at the University of Illinois. So special shout out to the recruiting staff, personnel staff, obviously our GM, Pat Embleton, who kind of just lines up everything from the evaluation process to the acquisition process. Nate McNeil, who's kind of been big back at Illinois 3 times now, was with Illinois prior, and then I came back. He came back with me, and then left for a little bit when Syracuse came back, and obviously Pat's right-hand man, and really in charge of evaluation acquisitions. Then Pat Pearson, who I can't say enough about, right, guy that I had at Arkansas, was actually Bret Moore's role for me at Arkansas, then went to Oregon, and then when I got the job here, Pat reached out and really just created a position that is very unique to college football, and helps me on a daily basis with way more than just recruiting or social media. Just incredible. Pat Ryan's effect on the building, our high school relations director. I can't tell you how many times we reach out to a kid, it doesn't matter what state, not just here at Illinois, but the coach will say, hey, I just talked to Pat Ryan, your high school relations, and it could be a high school coach from Florida, Pennsylvania, California, and the effect Pat Ryan has through a phone conversation is unbelievable. Drake Leeper, who I met through a letter that he wrote me, to where we are today, a guy that's been promoted several times in our building. John Proto joined us for a couple years now. He's actually involved with the college side of scouting and our NFL liaison. Terry Hawthorne, obviously come full circle with him as a player here, was with us as a personnel guy, and then came back now and is really working with the defense side of the ball. Newcomer Eddie Simpkins, our director of offensive player personnel. Natalie Wooch has been with us as a student. She left Oklahoma, came back, has been an asset since she came back, and Ben Dosser, who is another assistant we just added. So those guys make up our personnel, and in addition to that, all my coaches are here in the back. You'll have a chance to interview those guys at the end of today's presentation, but it's a team effort that's never been seen before. So have a number of states represented. We got 30 guys in the boat, guys that we feel really, really good about, offense, defense, special teams, all got unique stories. Some of them come in as normal high school students. Obviously, we got a few junior college players in here. What we'll do is take a deep breath after today, and then the portal world is going to open up. It's already begun to happen. Obviously, I had a couple guys announce they were getting in the portal. That's unprecedented in college football, what's happening right now. I think with the one portal window, kids are feeling the urge to get in there sooner than ever. So we'll kind of take a deep breath after today, see where my roster is with what we have coming back, in addition to these players here today, and take an inventory of each position to see what we kind of need to do, and speculation of what we need to be for 2026. So I know you got a listing of them all, but like for us, we always start in state here, and to have a number of players that we were able to go after, and now we were able to land. It was different a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. We started attacking in-state. We had to talk about how we could build something, how we could win, hopefully. And now they have tangible evidence of that. I comment all the time, like you always kind of make reference to what you've learned. And this year, first game of the year, Hank Beatty broke a record that Red Grange set over 100 years ago, right? And I distinctly remember saying to myself, and I think I said it to media that day, like anytime you break a record that's been around for 100 years, that's a pretty good thing. And after last Saturday's game, to know that we were 4-1 against a rival, against Northwestern. When I got here, they were 0-6. So that one flipped in a hurry, and obviously very proud of that. 2 back-to-back years where we've had the Cannon and the Hat Trophy. And then this year to get the players that we landed in the state of Illinois, right? Jacob Alexander, Tony Bologna. We got guys that we went after early on. Vaughn Grant, Nick Hankins. I'm trying to read over the Illinois guys. Nas Rankin. I know we got 7, right? Casey Toman and Will Vala. Those are the guys from the state of Illinois, and those guys always will be the premium for us. A little bit different in the fact that we couldn't probably get into the top 30 guys my first year here, and now I think we recruited everybody that we wanted, and some of those guys just happen to be the best players in the state. So that was a really big start for us. Then to go into St. Louis and get a couple players down there that I think could change the direction of our program in a hurry. I knew I was losing a lot of offensive linemen, so I think if you look at the numbers, you're going to see there was a huge focal point of offensive linemen, and some of these guys that we feel could come in and play for us immediately. And then on the defense side of the ball, we run kind of a unique scheme and skill sets. So we really want to get players that fit into that look. So have 8 players from the state of Illinois, so that leads it. We have 7 players from Florida and 3 from Texas, 2 from California, 2 from Nebraska, 2 from Ohio, 1 from Connecticut, Mississippi, Missouri, Jersey, and Australia got into the mix as well. So we got them from all over the world, and super excited about this class. So also just giving, I know I mentioned it, but my staff, what those guys do, especially when they get on campus, they pour into them. They give examples, testimonials of what they've witnessed, whether they've been with me just here at Illinois, if they've been with me prior places, or even former players. It's a really, really big part. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Brett talked about how this is an unprecedented class for you guys. I mean, rankings-wise, it says all that, but what led to this? Whether it's your stability, your winning, the money factor, and all of this. Like, why did? It's
a great question. Why is this class different? Yeah. I think twofold. First, the way they recruited, right? I know when we got out of last year, last year's recruiting class, we were right there knocking on the door with a lot of guys. It just seemed like there was 2 major factors why we couldn't get over the hump. Either we hadn't been good enough long enough, because last year it hadn't happened yet, right? We were getting there, but most of those kids made their decisions before the year ever started. So we were coming off a really good year, then we went to a 5-7 year, and then that next year was still coming. So I think getting good enough on the field was a big part of it. I just think kids still to this day, unless there's something extreme involved, they want to know they're going to go program that wins. And the second thing was just definitely the resources. Josh provides everything from the way we can, go after kids, the way we recruit, the way we can bring them into buildings like this, the way we can fuel them. Obviously, revenue is a big part of recruiting now. You can't ignore that. Although I do think we tell our kids all the time, or I tell our coaches and our recruiters, if we're finding during the evaluation process that we like a kid, we like him on film, we like who he is, but if his deciding factor is money, then that's probably telling us something. If we're good enough to get him here, we may not be able to keep him here, right? So I think that is a part of our process, but it's not a part of the over the top, right? I've told, Josh and administration this, right? Like I'm not asking for more money than everybody else. I just would like to be on par with everybody else, because if we can get in the same fight, I think we can win a lot of them. I'm not saying we're going to win all of them, and that's the difference this year. I think we got kids that, for the first time, we're in on kids that really like us. We like them, and the difference in money isn't so astronomical that they can settle for what they want if they want Illinois. So that, I would say, half of the guys on this list are in that category, that we were for the first time kind of in the same ballpark, and hopefully that's a sign of what we can do in the future.
Coach, some highly ranked you guys from the JUCO ranks. How'd that kind of go down, and do you feel like you got some guys that can help you right away?
Yeah, the question, the JUCO ranks and the effect they have. But if you go back during our bye week, one of my first years here, we went and saw a guy by the name of Isaiah Adams, right? And he was a guy that I liked on film, didn't love it, right? Didn't offer him, but we went to the school, listened to the coaches. I knew a couple of the coaches, was able to watch him practice and made an offer, and obviously that played out pretty well for us. And that's when my mind kind of flipped. When I was at Kansas State as a defense coordinator, that was when I was really first introduced to JUCO players, because we hadn't had a lot of that when I was at Iowa. And then when I went to Kansas State, they not majored, but they did a lot of, JUCO evaluations and recruiting. I had a couple of junior college players play for me. So that was when my eyes first opened. And I think when I came here and I saw the transition to portal players and maybe a lot of players in high school getting under-recruited, that was putting more into the junior college rankings, in my opinion. So that's when we really started evaluating them and taking a look at them. I would say Pat and his staff really did a good job. Every Wednesday night this fall, I would go in, I'd do my radio show, I'd get done about 7:30, about 8:30 we'd start, and we'd usually watch about 2 to 3 hours of film of just relentless players at all positions, and like this guy, don't like this guy, what's this guy's story. A lot of times they had given some background history. We really focused in on a couple linemen especially, but sometimes you don't always know if what you're being told is what you're going to get, right? So during both bye weeks, I literally flew and targeted junior colleges on all those days for the most part. We did a little bit of high school recruiting, but two guys that are all three linemen that we signed today were three guys that I targeted during those 2 bye weeks to go see and check on reality-wise. So it was very intentional, and hopefully pay good rewards.
To dovetail off that, I don't ask you to speak of something where you weren't here, but from the JUCO standpoint, you've had a lot of success recruiting JUCOs since you got here. Can you speak to how you and Josh have kind of maneuvered that with admissions and everything that goes into that, based off the past?
Yeah, great question. That question is, junior college players, getting in here at Illinois, which I think everybody, and it's, I'm not saying you're doing this right, but I think a lot of times JUCOs have a stigma of low grades or low academics, and that's the exact opposite. I think 20 years ago that was there, 15 years ago, but most of our junior college players that we've signed have been high school qualifiers, right? So to me, there's a really, really significant difference. In addition to that, like a lot of times kids will be the victim of maybe poor academic support, like maybe they're short in English or they're short of science or half a credit. But yeah, Isaiah Adams was a full JUCO, full high school qualifier. Just happened to come from Canada. I believe Caleb was a full qualifier. A lot of our, I don't know how many were not, but a majority of them were. And the same thing with these guys. I believe all three of these guys were high school qualifiers, if not one. But so I get the question, but that's changed. Now, 15, 20 years ago, that's all it was. Right, there were junior college players for a reason. They either didn't qualify or maybe they had some social component to them. But now there are high school qualifiers all the place, and usually they're the 3 phrases I love the most: are undersized, underrecruited, underdeveloped. Right? To be honest, J.C. Davis was a JUCO player. Right? J.C. Davis was not a JUCO player because of grades or social skills. He was an undersized 260-pound kid coming out of COVID, and because of that, he turned into a 290-pound JUCO to college player at New Mexico, and then he did really well there, and that's why we got him. So I think that's a little bit of a bigger picture of what it is.
Going back to your, when you first got here, the level of interest in recruiting as opposed to now. Like what could you quantify how different it is now as opposed to
for Illinois or just in general?
For you and for Illinois.
Well, I've always loved to recruit, so it hasn't really changed for me. It's just our pool has become better. I guess the people that listen have become better, right? We always took a swing. We just weren't getting very far, and maybe we got to 3 strikes and you're out. But now we're at the batter's box a little bit longer, and we can kind of wear on them a little bit, right? Like, there are kids I think now that want to come to Illinois, you know. But for me, I always go back to like the ones you didn't get, right? Like, and you know, there's a player in state that I swung at as hard as I could in last year's class that went west and played as a true freshman. And you know, like I always just think about like if we were better earlier, could we have gotten him? And I think the same thing this year. Like probably a kid that I went after as hard as any kid I've done in my coaching career. We just weren't good enough to overcome 18 years of what he learned about Illinois. But like, I didn't realize it. You're always so naive to what you don't know, right? When I went to Wisconsin, we never lost a kid in state in my entire 9 years there to anybody else. And I don't think kids even took visits. But every one of those kids had grown up with Wisconsin being great. And there's a value to that like you can't change a number of years of history that someone lives, right? Like I just have learned that during my career. And even like right now, right? Like as much as I want to say we're as good as everybody in the conference, right? Like I can't ignore what Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, you know, certain teams have done for, you know, 100 years. So we're breaking records one day at a time and over the course of time, and hopefully it keeps getting better.
Brett, what do you feel like you guys accomplished in your defensive secondary, in particular with Nick and
Yeah,
David?
what we accomplished in defense secondary, I'll go back to the two St. Louis guys. Those were guys who were high priorities for us from day one. Ironically, I think Jacob and Nick are two guys that can play on both sides of the ball. I think Coach Lunny and the offensive staff would argue the same. So those two guys in particular, I think do a really good job of accentuating that. Our corner from Florida,
Thomas?
no. Our corner.
I mean,
Amir, yeah, like Amir and like those guys were high priority guys for us right away, right? So I think that was big, you know. And then for us right now, you always talk about what's hot. You know, you look at Gabe Backus, right? Like you look at Xavier Scott, you look at some of our best players on defense come from the state of Florida. And I think we always kind of start in Illinois, but I would tell you, especially defensively, we usually go to the southeast. We go to Florida just because there's a lot of good players down there that fit our mode, and we've got such a strong foundation down there that it's really apparent. But I think those are areas also too in the month ahead that we'll really target on the defense side of the ball. Kind of focused on offensive line, and we felt good about obviously got a lot of good players leaving us on offense, but we knew offensive line was going to have to be a focal point.
And Michael Clayton was the first player in this class to commit, and then the first one you announced this morning.
Yeah.
What is he going to bring?
Yeah, Michael's been very intriguing ever since I laid eyes on him. Art Sikowski's been the lead recruiter. I know Coach Lunny liked him right away. I remember going to his high school a year ago and, you know, seeing a really just not only a kid that believed in himself, but a bunch of people around him. Mom and dad are great people. The school loved him. Obviously, he transitioned this year to a different school. But the funny part about Michael is, you know, as a quarterback, you watch him on film, you see a bunch of stuff on film, but when they come on campus, you can't work them out, right? And then, you know, in official visits, you can't work them out. Well, he came back this summer for our summer camp, and I had never seen him play live, or I'd never seen him throw live, because every time we went to see him, it wasn't a game day, it wasn't practice. So I was literally in our indoor, and he was throwing routes and worked out for about an hour, and I literally walked out of there, and I was like, I was feeling pretty good beforehand. I was feeling really good afterhand. Like he is extremely talented. He's athletic. He's big. He's accurate. He's you know, very good velocity on his ball. Has short touch, mid-range, long ball. And I do think it was important. So a lot of people may or may not know the story. So Michael was. I knew he was getting close. I knew we were getting close. We were involved with everybody. I mean, I don't want to name at the end, but at the end we're swinging with as big a stick as we could with as many good schools that were after him. And he wanted to Zoom and talk to us that day, and he wanted to talk to myself, Coach Lunny, and Art, and so I'm like, all right, like we're kind of in season, and I might have been during a bye week, but I'm like, hey, we'll Zoom at 3:00 whenever it was. So I have a Zoom room, and then most of the guys usually Zoom from their office. So I said, all right, I'll be in the Zoom room, and then Art's like, hey, Coach, the whole family wants wants us all in the same room. And I'm like, well, hey, I don't know what to tell the Claytons, but please tell them, like, that's the beauty of Zoom. We don't have to be all in the same room, right? Like, I'm not a real technological advanced guy, but I said, why don't we think about that? So we all get in this room, and I literally thought we were getting on to get the Zoom. I expected Mike, his dad, and mom to be on there, and all of a sudden, Michael Clayton walks through the door, right? And he flew to tell us he was coming to Illinois in person, right? Which I've never seen before, which was awesome. You got one more?
whomever, I make sure that I come to their defense, because I think nobody really understands how hard these guys work. This sport is different, and I've coached a lot of different ones, but these guys put a lot of time into what they do for just a minimal number of opportunities. You gotta understand that these guys have been at it, it's about a 360-day a week training regimen, and they've had a lot more than most, but they still only had 13 opportunities this year to do what they'd love to do. So the amount of work and the amount of time that they do, we've had 13 games that we've had an opportunity to play. So again, tremendous work ethic, great guys up here, and this guy at the end has been a 3-year starter here and just anchored both of our lines at different times, on the offensive and defensive line. There's not anything that he can't do on the field. And I'm going to turn it over to Chance Smith, who can say a few words.
First and foremost, I want to thank the Lord for the blessings of our life. Without the Lord, I wouldn't be able to be where I am today. I ask and pray to the Lord, please guide us to the right place. I also want to thank my parents for persevering throughout my whole process and sacrificing so much. You got me every day. I love you guys. I also want to thank my coaches and the people who supported me in my corner and shaped me into the player I am today. I also want to give a shout out to my grandma and granddad and church mom. I love all you guys. I believe that every player deserves a coach who believes in them, and this program believes in me. I can't wait to be a part.
We probably had a good idea that was going to lean our way.
The elite filibuster to get there.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's the last edition to get us to 30, and it's crazy. And I know he said it for a reason, but recruiting is about relationships, right? And usually every kid that comes in my office, I show them this folder, right? Somebody did a story on this folder, if I remember, right? But I've carried this folder since 1992, right? One of my first years as an assistant coach, I was a GA working for Hayden Fry. I've carried it every day. It's looking a little old, but I usually show every recruit this folder because I carry it every day of my life. And inside it, I didn't know Champ was going to do that. Inside it is a phrase that said, every player deserves a coach that believes in him. And I show that to every recruit, usually with their parents, because I want them to understand, like, when you become a head coach, everybody usually thinks it's about getting players to come and believe in them, right? And you got to believe in the head coach, you got to believe in his philosophy, you got to believe in the things he says. But I think the real juice comes when you find players to make them understand that I believe in them. So every day I look at that book, every day I open it up, I make notes every day in these things for my staff, but in the upper left-hand corner, I look at this quote that says, every player deserves a coach that believes in them, because I want them to walk in the building every day. Walking in is important, but walking out, I want them to know that I believe in them more than ever, right? And I think that's a really thing. He just read it from there. I know I only showed him that one time, so to have him say that right there was pretty awesome for me. So those little moments mean a lot. So with that being said, are we done with questions?
Yeah,
we
let's
good?
get
All
into
right.
it, though.